What's up? Thanks for bearing with me. I am Herb Howard. The first place Chicago Bears are 2-1 as they head into their Week 4 showdown versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I know it's very early. We aren't even a quarter of the way through the season, and being in first place at this point means almost nothing. But it's something that we don't get to say around here very often, and so I am absolutely going to acknowledge and celebrate the fact that the Chicago Bears are sitting atop the NFC North, albeit after just 3 weeks. Now, when you talk about the Bears, you're really almost talking about two different teams. You have the offense and you have the defense. And it's interesting when you hear head coach Matt Nagy talk about the two opposite sides of the ball, because even he speaks about those two things as if they're two separate teams. You'll hear him say, we, when he's talking about the offense, and then he'll say they, when he's talking about the defense. Now, Matt Nagy's been brought over here. He's implementing a new offense. He's been charged with making sure that second-year quarterback Mitch Trubisky reaches his fullest potential. And with that in mind, he retained defensive coordinator Vic Fangio to continue to run what was already a top 10 defense last year. Vic Fangio, widely regarded as one of the brightest defensive minds in the game. And so Matt Nagy kind of lets Fangio do his thing with the defense as Matt Nagy does his thing with the offense. But there are two things that are being said about each side of the ball that are kind of overgeneralizations and not quite accurate if you ask me. The first is about Mitch Trubisky and the offense. The second relates to Khalil Mack and the defense. Now, if you're talking about the 2018 Bears, you have to start with the defense, so we'll start there as well. And when you talk about the defense, it all begins with Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is a phenomenal player. He affects the game on every single snap. He's a generational talent. He is on a trajectory to be a Hall of Fame player. I fully expect him to continue on that trajectory. However, people are saying that Khalil Mack is just carrying this Bears defense and that the Bears defense is so good solely because of Khalil Mack. That's just not true. The fact of the matter is, this was a top 10 defense last year, and they were looking to improve to become a top 5 defense this year before the Khalil Mack trade. It's also true that Khalil Mack was just as phenomenal of a player as he is here in Chicago when he was in Oakland. He was just as good. On a Hall of Fame trajectory, elite player, affecting the game on every single snap. But Oakland never had any dominant defenses. They were never a top 10, top 5 unit as this team is right now. They could very well be the best defense in the league. Now, Khalil Mack certainly is looking like the early favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year, but he's not doing that alone. He has benefited greatly. He said so himself that he's blessed to have come into this situation with so many other good players around him. Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman up front, the linebackers led by Danny Trevathan, Roquan Smith, the back end, Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller, all of those guys playing really, really well. It's not just about Khalil Mack. He's the centerpiece. He's the best player on it. But he's benefiting from the fact that he plays with so many good players, just like they're benefiting from the fact that they are playing with a Hall of Fame elite level talent. This defense is doing it all right now. They haven't given up 75 yards on the ground. They lead the league with 14 sacks. They're turning the ball over. This team is playing at an elite level, and there's no reason to think that they won't continue that. In fact, I expect them to get better as they continue to gel. Once again, Khalil Mack came 1 week before the season. Their rookie first-round pick, number 8 overall, Roquan Smith, middle linebacker, came over with the expectation for him to be kind of in the middle of that defense, kind of quarterbacking the whole thing. He didn't get to camp until the last 2 weeks of the preseason. And so you got two of your most important players that kind of just fell into your lap at the end of the preseason. So they continue to gel. As they continue to gel, this defense is only going to get better and better and better. But make no mistake about it, it's not just about Khalil Mack. It's the entire defense playing at such a high level. He's benefiting from them just as much as they are benefiting from him. Now you go to the other side of the ball, and you have to start with Mitch Trubisky. And certainly he's been underwhelming. He's been disappointing. He's been inaccurate. His consistency hasn't been there in terms of accuracy, but people are saying that he's holding the offense back. He's the reason that the offense hasn't performed to the level that we had hoped to see. But that's not entirely true either. First of all, yes, he's been inaccurate, but he hasn't been so inaccurate. He's not just missing balls all over the field. The fact of the matter is, Mitch Trubisky is completing almost 70% of his passes. Now, the throws that he is missing, that's the problem. He is missing big throws that could potentially be huge plays or even touchdowns. Shots down the field, he's missing wide open receivers, and that is the problem because those plays stick out in your memory. You remember them because that could have been a touchdown, that could have been a huge play, and those are the types of throws that he's missing. But he's not the only reason that this offense hasn't hit full stride yet. First of all, you're talking about implementing a new offense. Matt Nagy brings a brand new offense to the Bears. No one on this team knows it, with the exception of a few players who have experienced it a little bit in the past. When you talk about tight end Trey Burton coming over from Philly, they run a similar offense. Eric Kush he was drafted by Kansas City, spent some time there. He knows a little bit about the offense. But for the most part, these guys are all learning this system together. And so the receivers, the offensive line, the running backs, they're all learning a brand new offense. It's not just Mitch Trubisky that's keeping them from reaching their full potential. As all of them grow in this offense, it's going to become more comfortable for all of them. They'll all be playing at a higher level. They'll be playing faster, thinking a little bit less, and that will lead to them being able to connect on those big plays that they seem to be missing out on right now. If it's difficult for the receivers to understand exactly what they have to get done on any given play, and it's difficult for the running backs, difficult for the offensive linemen, yeah, it has to be even more difficult on Mitch Trubisky. The receivers only need to know what they're doing. The running backs, they only need to know what they're doing. O-line, who are we blocking? What's the protection? Are we sliding left? Are we sliding right? What are we doing here? Mitch Trubisky has to know all of that. He has to know his job and everybody else's job on the play. And so it's harder for him. And so I don't think it's fair to say he's the reason that they haven't quite hit their full stride yet. This is going to take some time. The offense that we saw in Kansas City that was so explosive last year, that was on its 5th year in the system. This is year number 1. Now, make no mistake about it. I'm not sitting here saying that we got to give Mitch Trubisky a pass or anything. You can call it how you see it. Like I said, he's been wildly inconsistent with his accuracy. He's shown some happy feet in the pocket sometimes, and he's made some poor decisions about where to go with the ball at times. But he's also shown some good things. Nearly 70% completion percentage. He's making some good checks at the line of scrimmage. They're getting in and out of the huddle. You don't see them getting low in the play clock each and every snap. They're not burning through a whole lot of timeouts, although I really don't like the way that Matt Nagy has managed the clock so far. But that's a different conversation for a later time. We'll continue to manage how he is with clock management. Just in terms of the timeouts, I feel like we just blow so many timeouts. But Mitch Trubisky has done some things well, and I think he's going to continue to improve. Now, I'm already on record. I think we should have took Deshaun Watson. Patrick Mahomes has come out of the gate this year looking like he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. We'll see if that continues. And so he's always going to be tied to those two guys for sure. And I'm not trying to tell you that he's a better player than those guys. We certainly have not seen any evidence of that to this point. But I do think he can get better. I do think he can improve. And the fact of the matter is, he is the Bears quarterback for the foreseeable future. Ryan Pace hitched his wagon to him when he traded up to get him at number 2 overall. And we're just going to have to ride this thing out and see if he can get better. But I believe that he'll improve as everyone else in the offense continues to improve as well. It's a brand new offense. It's not all on Mitch Trubisky. He's not the only reason that the offense hasn't hit its stride. He's a part of it, no doubt about it, but he's not the only reason. Same thing on the defensive side of the ball, although it's the opposite discussion because they're playing so well, but Khalil Mack is not the only reason that they are playing well. He gets double teamed, he gets triple teamed, and sometimes you can take him out of the play, sure. Now, he's affected that play because you have to put 2 or 3 people on him, and so that leaves these other guys with one-on-one blocks, but they're beating those blocks. Akeem Hicks, sack fumble last week. They're beating those blocks. You're seeing Leonard Floyd, he's coming along. He's playing really well in the run game too. The sack numbers haven't been there for him yet, but he's playing really well in the run game. So there are a lot of things going on with this defense that is the reason that they are playing well. Khalil Mack certainly is the biggest reason. I'm not trying to say he's not, but any belief that he is simply carrying this defense on his own is not true. And the same for the other side of the ball. Any belief that Mitch Trubisky is the sole reason that this offense has not yet hit its stride is also not true. It's a team game. It takes all the guys out there on the field. Thanks for bearing with me. Continue to stick with me. Follow the page, like the page, subscribe to it. We're going to continue to talk about the Bears throughout the season as we go here with the first place 2018 Bears. Thanks for bearing with me. I am Herb Howard.